There are people who would subvert the political process to their own ends and will engage in criminal activity to undermine the system and achieve their nefarious goals. Those words are as true today as when they were spoken almost 2 years ago by Republican Oakland County Executive L. Brooks Patterson, as he called for a grand jury investigation into election fraud that took place within his county. We're here today because, just like in that case, we cannot let politics prevail over the truth and justice. Yet as we uncover more of the details surrounding the election fraud scheme that Speaker of the House Jase Bolger, Representative Roy Schmidt, and their co-conspirators tried to pull on the people of Michigan, we know that politics has been standing directly in the way at every step of the way. Our elections and the rights of every citizen to vote are not something that can ever be taken lightly. No one is above the law. If we do not pursue the corruption right here in the very halls of our own state capitol to its fullest extent, then we have learned nothing from the conduct of Kwame Kilpatrick or others who have treated their office and our electoral system as their own personal playground. Doing nothing would send a message to the people of Michigan that they should not trust their government. When this apparently criminal behavior takes place in broad daylight by the highest-ranking officials in our state, and those entrusted with upholding the law only shrug their shoulders in the hopes of quietly brushing it under the rug. If the Attorney General is unwilling to uphold his duty to investigate this case, and if the county prosecutor feels it's simply too complicated or too costly for him to pursue it, then justice demands that we move forward without them. The action we are pushing here today will assure that the public, at the end of this process, will at least know the truth, something I would hope that Speaker Bolger and Representative Schmidt would even agree that the public deserves. So along with Mr. Brewer, I am seeking today to remove this case from the political arena and instead turn it over to the one place in state government that might actually give our citizens some confidence, our judicial system. Justice is blind, after all. We believed that once, and we can believe it again when this receives a full, a fair, and an impartial review it has deserved from day one. We are submitting a complaint and petition for expedited investigation by a judicial officer to the Ingham County Circuit Court and requesting the appointment of a one-person grand jury, a judge, to fully investigate the fraud that has taken place and make a determination as to whether crimes were committed by those currently known to have been involved and or any additional parties after a full investigation. This situation is just like the one-person grand jury that reviewed the fake Tea Party scheme in Oakland County, the investigation called on by L. Brooks Patterson, and which ultimately led to those involved being prosecuted and held accountable. It was the appropriate course of action then, and it is the necessary course of action now. To understand why, let's quickly examine the facts as we know them. As you all know, the Kent County Prosecutor's report slammed the Speaker and Representative Schmidt for what they did, but concluded, under an inexplicably narrow review of election law, that no laws were broken. However, based on the evidence we now have obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, it is clear that his investigation was at best incomplete, and that laws may indeed have been broken. The dots are not difficult to connect, and that's based solely on a limited amount of evidence uncovered before the investigation was prematurely ended. Let's start where most prosecutors would, with the Michigan Penal Code, specifically with perjury, a very serious crime under the law, a crime so serious it was enough to impeach a president of the United States. We need to take this just as seriously. Pursuant to Michigan law, Perjury is making a false affidavit or swearing falsely while under oath for the purposes of, among other things, qualifying as a candidate for elective office. Not one person has disputed that Matt Mojack committed perjury when he knowingly filed a false affidavit of his residency and voter registration status. From the perjury itself, then, we only need to look at how Mr. Mojack wound up in such a position to commit that crime. The Kent County prosecutor himself concluded Mojack was a pawn in a bigger scheme. Again, the answers seem to be in front of us, at least in the form of text messages between Jase Bolger, Roy Schmidt, and his son, Ryan Schmidt. They reveal that it was known Mr. Mojack would be perjuring himself when he filed the affidavit, and yet they encouraged him to do it anyway, even to the point of offering him a payoff to follow through with it. What Speaker Bolger and Representative Schmidt appear to have done, based on a review of their text messages, is called conspiracy to commit perjury. And if true, that too is a crime. Michigan law also describes subornation of perjury, which is essentially procuring another person to commit the crime of perjury. By recruiting Mojack and helping him file his false affidavit, it certainly raises the question for me and other lawyers who have looked at this evidence as to whether or not Speaker Bolger and Representative Schmidt had broken that law as well. Yet despite all of this evidence that was initially put in front of law enforcement, the state police investigation was abruptly shut down, going so far as to have urgent letters dispatched to both Verizon and Yahoo asking them not to turn over evidence that was already being gathered as a result of search warrants executed by the state police. This all begs the question, what further light would have been shed had the investigation continued? We may never know, because a prosecutor deemed the case too complicated or too costly to pursue. And our own state's attorney general, the person who promised Michigan voters that he would clean up corruption in government, is potentially involved in the story himself. Records reveal he'd been in communication with Representative Schmidt as the scheme was becoming known. Yes, instead of a pursuit of the truth, we saw just the opposite take place as the scheme unraveled, as Representative Schmidt, Speaker Bolger, Ryan Schmidt, and Representative Lisa Posthumous Lyons, and potentially others, arguably obstructed justice, seeking to conceal the facts of their involvement from the public and from authorities. Also troubling, it appears that persons in the office of the Secretary of State may have also obstructed justice by their interference or lack of cooperation with the investigation of these alleged crimes. Simply put, the public deserves to know the full extent of what happened. And if crimes were committed, the public deserves justice. Yet from top to bottom, every single person involved in this case, as well in the review of it, appears to have put their party affiliation and political interests ahead of the truth. In short, that's disgraceful. And our action today to remove this process from the political gutter in which it currently resides is our best hope of finally getting the answers that the people of Michigan deserve.